spend so much of our energy trying to hold it all together, our teams, our goals, our brand, our family. But what if the tighter we grip, the more we actually lose?
Yes. And as leaders, we can think about this as being responsible. Yet, sometimes that can turn into holding on, controlling too tightly.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Control and beyond the control freak, why leaders crave it, what it costs, and how letting go might actually be the most powerful thing you can do.
I'm excited for this conversation, Daphna. Let's get unfiltered.
Yeah. So, what are we actually talking about today? What is this thing called control? Because I'm imagining that a lot of the listeners out there are thinking, but I'm not such a, maybe they recognize they're a control freak, but I don't micromanage, I don't do everything. So, how do we make it tangible?
Yes. Yeah, I think we want to make it clear, Daphna, that we are talking about leaders and leadership behaviors that can come from really great intentions. Yet it's really easy to spill over into being too controlling.
Yes.
An
Yes.
example to start with could be we want to be prepared. We want to be on top of things. We want to make sure our meetings are really efficient and effective. Yet we could spill over into controlling the discussion too tightly, cutting off any objections, right? Not letting any topics go off tangent ever. And we might be losing some richness in the conversations that could emerge.
Yeah, and that actually makes me think about a conversation I recently had with two founders
Yeah.
that I'm coaching at the moment. And they were asking me, why is it that we are the ones doing all the talking in the meetings? We have an executive committee meeting and no
Yeah.
one is participating. It's just me and my co-founder all the time. And I had to ask them to step back and think about it because in their mind, it wasn't control. It was we're stepping in because no one else is. But
We're
why is no,
contributing.
yes,
Yeah.
why is no one else in? Why is no one else contributing? And it could be the over preparation, but I think in their case, it's under preparation because they're holding all the ideas in their head. Everything is clear as day to them in their head, but
Yes.
they haven't shared it, they haven't structured it. So they've got all this stuff to download, and they're not really
Yeah.
creating space and an opportunity for their leadership team to pitch in.
Yes. Yes.
So it's
Couple
hidden
different
control here, hidden control.
hidden control, right? It could also be the person who feels like the responsibility, the ownership stops with
Right,
me. So if
right.
something's not working, I got to jump in and figure it out.
Yeah,
I've got to insert myself. I've got to grab that report and review
right.
it at the last minute,
Right.
right?
It's
And
I've got
that,
to be on top of I've got to be on top of everything because if I'm not and the business fails, it's my responsibility. So it's holding everything and being wanting to be so on top of it that there's no room for error, experimentation, other people to come in.
yes, yes. Yeah, that could also be a leader that's holding all the decision making with
Yes,
themselves, right?
yes,
Like, I need to be responsible. I need to make those decisions. And of
right.
course, that can cause
I love
bottlenecks.
that,
We'll talk
Amy.
more about the
I know, I
impacts of it.
know. I actually want to just dwell on this a little bit longer because I think this is such an
Yes.
important one because I call it the bottleneck for decision
Yeah.
making. And I often ask the leaders that I work with, where are you the bottleneck in decision making? Because when we're talking about letting go, and I think this is a topic that's very closely related to this control. There's control versus letting go. And when you ask
Yes.
leaders or tell them or share with them, suggest that they should be letting go more, they often don't even know what that means. And it goes beyond the delegation of tasks, which they've already mastered at this stage. It's really about delegation of authority, delegation of leadership. What kind of decisions are you actually willing to let others make? Even though you're
Yeah.
not sure what this is, what
Yeah.
will come out of it, what
Yeah.
will they do with it?
Not just letting others do, but letting
Exactly.
others decide as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got another
Um,
CEO who will not have any new hire come into the business without them approving it first, which is
ah,
crazy. You can imagine bottleneck, time,
mhm,
energy, process gets
mhm,
lengthened.
mhm.
So that is
Yep.
one thing. Recruitment, hand over,
Yep.
let other, and
Yep.
at certain levels, let other people make those decisions.
Yeah, a couple more examples to share, Daphna, because I think here we want every leader to see themselves
Yes,
in this.
yes,
That
for sure.
very well-intentioned, non-micromanaging managers can get into situations where they're over controlling for very good intentions,
Yeah.
but it slips over into that other side. Another example can be wanting to be a data driven leader, a decision
Yes,
maker, right? We
yes.
got to have the data. We got to have the data, right? And that can lead to we got to drill in here. We got to get this much more data. We got to get this much more data. And Daphne, we're moving into a lot of new spheres in our workplaces, and sometimes there's not the data
Yes,
to
sometimes the data,
fully describe.
sometimes the data you need or want just doesn't exist in the entirety that you would like it to be in, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes leaders want to stay connected, want to make sure that they understand everything that's going on in their team or in their division. And that can lead to wanting to be copied on everything, wanting to be in the know
Mhm,
on
mhm.
every conversations, every interaction, actions that are being taken. And that can begin to feel like too much.
Yeah,
Sometimes leaders are like, I have to know what to tell my boss
right.
when they come by and ask for an update.
Right, right, right. And that is under the guise of I have to be on top of it. If I don't know what's going on, then I'm not on top of it. But is
Yes.
that true? I mean, we're going to look at that. Like, what are the fears and things driving it? But I do want to add one more, and that is
Yep.
measuring worth through productivity. And that is
Okay.
if I'm busy all the time and
Ah,
I'm involved and I know what's going on, then I'm doing a good job. So my
yes.
worth as a
Yes.
leader, as a contributor to this organization is validated. But
That I'm
that also,
integral to the organization. I'm
yeah.
contributing. I need to be involved. I,
I'm busy. And I
mm,
know that with that, there's also the staying in that zone of excellence. We know what we're
mm,
good at. We're very good at it. This is why we were
mm.
hired. But as you kind of rise in the levels of leadership, you don't need
Yep.
to prove your excellence in those areas anymore. You need to be evolving into more strategic thinking, into leading and getting things done through others. And that looks
Yeah.
different. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's also a fear in there of, well, what do I do if I'm not doing the thing that I'm best at?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Have to keep doing that instead of like setting up the conditions
yeah,
for
exactly.
your teams, your
Yeah.
associates to do the work well.
And another one that I know many people complain about is that not enough information sharing. So controlling
Oh,
the flow
yeah.
of information and also
Hmm.
saying, we'll share stuff on a need to know basis. So if you need to know
Yeah.
this, I'll share. So you only give your people a certain amount of information because you think that's all
Yeah.
they need to know in order to do their job.
Well, you also can be thinking that I'm protecting them,
Hmm.
right? Because, okay, there's my organization is full of information and I don't want them to get distracted by
Yeah,
this or that,
yeah,
right? Or I don't want their brains and their energy to get hijacked by such and such thing, right? So you're trying to control what information gets to them
very true. And how
from good
controlling is that?
intentions,
I don't want them to get distracted. That is pretty controlling. You know,
right?
do you know what
Yeah.
else is coming up for me? I don't know if this
What's
is,
that?
tell me in the States if this is something that you recognize, but there's a big conversation going on about the blue check marks on WhatsApp. Do you know about that? The red receipts.
Okay.
Okay,
No.
so yeah, because I know in America you use WhatsApp a little bit less, but on WhatsApp for people who do use it or in other places in the world, it's a messaging system, like a
Yeah.
direct messaging thing, where there's a check mark. You get two check marks if people have read and if people have opened. And then they
Okay.
turn blue when they've actually opened. But you can
Okay.
disengage this or disable
Okay.
that functionality. So there's a big conversation. I've disabled my blue check mark so people can't tell if I've opened their message. And there's a big conversation about how selfish that is because other people can't tell if I've read their message.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
Yes.
I'm saying if we bring it into control, who's being
Yes.
controlling here? I'm letting
Right.
it go. I'm saying, okay, you can see it's been delivered. You can see that it's got to where it needs to go. When I read it is my business. You don't have to
Yeah.
know that I've opened it or read it. And people
Yeah.
are getting very anxious around that. I don't
Yeah.
know if they've read my message or I sent it 10 hours ago and I still haven't had a response.
They read it. Why haven't they
Yeah.
responded?
So that
Yeah.
could be similar to email reads and receipts, you know? They've
Yes.
received my email, they've read my email, why aren't they answering? That triggers anxiety and control issues as well. That just like it was a thought that came
Well,
in.
is that getting to a level of information where it's then really easy to get into controlling thoughts about it?
Exactly.
Right? How quickly are
Exactly.
they reading? How quickly are they responding? Why aren't
Yes.
they responding?
Yes.
Now my brain is making up stories about that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I hear it from the teenagers in the messaging, right? They left me
Right.
unread.
Exactly. They left me unread. Exactly. It becomes a whole mechanism that I
Yeah.
just, feel feeds into this need to control. We might not recognize it as a need to control. It's just a need to know, or, some people might call it a
Mhm.
social, I don't know what, etiquette, but actually it does line that. So I think the interesting question here is really looking at what behaviors do we have that give us some kind of a
Mhm.
hint or a clue at wanting to
Mhm.
control something that is
Mhm.
outside of our area of control.
Exactly. Yeah. So Daphne and I just shared with you listeners a number of examples. I know I could see myself in a couple of them, and we invite you all to see yourself inside of this because I think that this is something that well-intentioned, caring leaders can start to grip and control too tightly in an
Right,
area or two.
right,
So
right.
identify where is your slippery slope? Where is it easy for you to shift
Yes.
into holding on too tightly?
Which of these examples could you relate to? And maybe you can think of others that we haven't mentioned that are part of your repertoire of wanting to have that
Yeah.
feeling of staying on top of it or being involved or caring for people or wanting to get things right, but it does have that underlying tone of really wanting to be in control and finding it hard to let go. So I think,
Yeah. Yeah. So having my own business and having a team that helps me with back office uh, tasks, if you will. I'm thinking particularly about them right now. I can feel like it's my business. Like I shouldn't put the burden on them of making certain decisions. But honestly, my ops manager like handles all my invoicing and such. Like if she's not sure how a business partner wants something invoiced, just ask the business partner, right? Like just take
right.
like you don't have to check with me first. But I noticed that she was checking with me, and I'm like, what have I set up here, right? That she
Exactly.
doesn't feel like that she has the ownership to
Yeah.
just handle that part of the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think even I just want to just double click on that because even when you think, oh, it's just a little thing, I'll just do it. It will be quicker for me to do it. And I know exactly what I'm doing. It will take me longer to explain it than to just do it
Yeah.
myself. You're actually training your people to let you do a lot of the stuff. So then it becomes easy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, Amy will take care of it. Daphne will do it.
Mm-hmm.
She knows how.
Uh-huh.
It's quicker. I'll just hand it back to her. And
Yes. We were
loading yourself with unnecessary
yeah.
tasks. Yeah, actually.
Absolutely. The Courage of a Leader recently introduced a product called the Clarity Kit. And Daphna, I got in there thinking I need to test this in all the different environments. And I really should have just slowed down and connected with my team member B and like, where are we at? What testing do we think is necessary? How do we want to do that? And right, but I jumped in like, I got to be the responsible one. I've got to test this. I got to make sure the shopping cart and the delivery mechanisms are all working exactly the way that they're supposed to.
Right.
Right. And I tested, I know I tested something we didn't need to test. I know I caused a little extra flurry of activity
Yeah,
that
yeah,
didn't need to be
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Instead of slowing down, having a conversation, let's plan this together. She was closer to the technical work that we were doing on that.
Yeah, and let her do it then. I think this is a good time to move into what's underneath that, because I think that's really
Perfect.
useful to explore. What
Yeah.
is the fear, the worry, the anxiety
Yeah.
underneath that needing to control? So we've spoken about how it comes in
Good
the guise
question.
of caring or wanting to get things right or wanting to make sure it's done properly or all those things or just do it quickly.
Yep.
But what's underneath that really? And I think that is a good question for everyone listening to just ask yourself for a minute, just step back and say, okay, here's a behavior that I'm doing. I know it's not really that empowering to my team. It's probably something I could let go of, but why? What's
Mhm.
driving me to actually take
Mhm.
that on? And
Mhm.
I think some common ones are if I don't get it right, my business will fail,
Yes.
If
Yes, our
I don't,
reputation is at stake, right? That was one for
reputation,
me with introducing this clarity kit. Well, what
right,
if somebody clicks through and it doesn't work the way that we want it
right.
to look? This is going to look terrible. So,
Professionalism, reputation, credibility, and also you're the business owner or you're the business head or whatever it may be. At the end of it, if it fails, people are going to be looking to you or you carrying responsibility or you have to pay those salaries at the end of the month. So those are
yeah,
the taking,
yeah,
wanting to be responsible, but taking over responsibility. And how
yeah,
does it hold us back? How does it hold us
yeah,
back? Because I'm sitting here thinking, maybe there are people going, okay, so, okay, so I take responsibility. I do it. I can handle it. I'm managing it. What's the
What's
downside?
what's the cost?
What's the cost?
Yeah. I've had this conversation with a number of leaders, Daphna, who are resistant to delegate, right? And actually, some have admitted, like, I have control issues, right? Like, I can do
Right.
this at a
Yeah.
high level of quality. I want to make sure this continues to get done at a high level of quality. And also that fear. Just going back to fears for a moment of if I delegate all of this, like, are people going to wonder what I'm doing? Then we are not developing those around us. We are impacting their motivation if we jump in at the last minute and we are taking over or we are over testing.
Hmm.
Right, then my team member can be thinking, what, you don't trust me to have this set up right?
So I think the one thing that's coming up for me as you're talking is this whole concept that I work with, which is, are we um, creating dependency or building
Mm,
capacity? Because I
beautiful.
think that when you are always in charge, always in control, and really
Yeah,
delegating tasks, you are building
yeah.
dependency because at the end of the day, nothing can move forward
Mm-hmm.
without you. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're starting to understand what letting go can do and really letting go of some of those decisions and authority and leadership, you are
Yeah,
building capacity and you're building a layer of leadership that can start to operate independently, which
yeah,
means that you get to do, and I say this to the senior leaders and CEOs that I work with, you are paid the big bucks to drive forward, to bring up the big vision and ideas. And how many times do CEOs feel frustrated that they don't feel they can move forward at the pace that they want to because they're constantly being pulled down into
yeah,
fighting fires, managing
yeah,
crises, digging in the weeds and correcting
yeah.
mistakes. You want to be able to take that level up, but you can't take that little level up until you learn to let go. Let go and allow people to make mistakes.
Absolutely. And what that does, Daphna, is that engages your team and your
They
workforce.
feel like
I
they're a
mean,
part of something.
dare I say, we are in an engagement crisis right now, right? And if we take the decisions from people, if we jump in and fix in the last minute, then we are not giving them autonomy. We're not giving them
Yeah.
ownership. And that creates engagement and that creates care, right? If I get to own this part of what we do and I get to make the decisions inside of that, I show up and I feel a different way about my work. I'm more engaged. And this is what we need if we're going to move forward with velocity.
Right. Right. Exactly. So that's the cost. The cost is disengagement from your team, not feeling like you trust them and they don't feel empowered to actually make decisions. They don't feel like their job is meaningful or impactful because they become kind of just the doers or the implementers. Um, yeah. And I think I also want to add the cost to you because understand that the more in control you are, the more at risk you are for exhaustion,
Oh,
burnout.
yeah.
And even if we don't get to that level, it's like the level of stimulation and creative thinking that you actually really want to be operating at. You don't ever feel like you can really get there. And that's
Yeah.
something that is a cost to you
Yeah.
in this whole
Even if, as
process.
I've been talking about the examples of control and what we do, um, like those of us who are watching a video version of this, right? Like I'm leaning forward in my chair, I'm clenching up my stomach, I'm gripping my hands, right? Like
Right.
that's what it feels like to try to
Right.
stay
Right.
on top
I
of all
love
of that.
that.
It creates tension and
Wow.
stress in our bodies.
Mm.
And for some, it can feel uncomfortable to sit back and let go,
Let things happen. But I
right? And,
love
and,
where you've
and
taken us. I love where you've taken us because that
okay,
body, notice your body. Notice what's going on in your body, right? What you're describing is what does it feel like in our body when we want to be in control? There's a tightness, there's a gripping,
yeah,
there's a
hmm
tension in our body. And creativity and innovation does not come from tension and control. We know
yeah,
there's a reactivity that happens when we're in tension, right? We're much
yeah,
more in reactive space. Like I mentioned earlier, that firefighting mode, managing crises, managing problems, sometimes can give us a huge sense of satisfaction and adrenaline,
yes, yep, yep,
but that's not where our creative thinking space lies. And I think as
yeah,
leaders, we need to be thinking of how do we break boundaries? How do we forge ahead? How do we move forward? We want to do that level of creative thinking that we can't do. We're in the tension of that control. So I love bringing the body in and noticing what that feels like in the body.
yes. And getting more comfortable with sitting back and being curious, like, okay, wait a minute, this initially feels off topic for me. But my team members who are great at doing this work are initiating this different kind of conversation. Maybe there's something here.
Yeah,
Maybe there's an idea.
yeah,
Maybe there's something to see.
yeah,
Right? Can I have this, let this conversation be and see what emerges
yeah,
rather than always
yeah.
controlling the
And
conversation, keeping it right
Amy,
on task.
right. So remember, Amy, if I can bring that up when we were planning for this episode, right? Episode on
Yeah.
control. And what does control look like? And what did we do? We straight away wanted to control what will this episode be? And what are we going to talk about? And how are we going to talk about it? Which is fair. I mean,
I
that's
know.
fine, a level of planning. But then we
Right.
caught ourselves in saying, hold on a sec. What if we just let it flow?
I'm
And
controlling the control conversation.
controlling the episode on control. Let's like give that a breath. And it really is. It's about taking a breath for a minute and saying, okay, what's going to emerge? And sometimes from that flow, a lot of things will emerge that you would never have expected. And those could be quite pleasant and surprising and positive.
Yes, absolutely.
I actually have another story I want to share, which I think
Oh,
is
great.
relevant for here. And that's I was coaching a CEO on a problem that he was having with his business that he wanted to take it forward in some way. And it's something he'd been racking his brains about for a long time. And then he brought it into the coaching and he said, listen, I need to solve this problem. Absolutely, it's enough. Something needs to break free here. And I said to him, instead of us two solving it in this session right
Mm,
now, why don't you
mm-hmm,
bring this problem to your leadership team? See
mm-hmm.
how they respond and what ideas they will have, because I'm sure they will come up with things that you and I will not think about in this moment.
Yes.
And for me, that really indicated this is a good level of letting go because his pattern was spot the problem, find the solution, bring the solution to the leadership team so that they can implement. But I
Yes.
said, take it a step back and don't
Yes.
spot the problem. Great, that's your gift. Don't try and solve it and bring it. Actually solve it together. And that was just it was a really big aha moment for him in terms of taking that next level of leadership, that he was complaining about, that he can't, and why don't they come up with ideas and why don't they contribute more? And here we had an example of what pattern of behavior are you in that is
Yeah.
just creating this environment.
Yes, I love that, Daphna. I just recently had a conversation with the leader. There had been a reduction in force, and they were going to have to reorganize the tasks and the roles. And this leader felt like they needed to sit in their office and figure this all out
Right.
on a piece of paper. Right. And then we started talking about what could be the benefit of bringing others in, of asking everyone, right? Like, we're going to need to reshuffle this. What do you see as your strengths? What are you interested in? Right. And then it was, well, what if there's nobody interested in this part?
Okay,
Yeah,
we'll deal
well,
with it.
you'll figure it out, right? It'll get assigned somewhere. It needs to be taken
Yeah,
care of, right? But if you could line up as much as possible with what they're good at, what they're interested in learning more about, how is engagement and just like the change process going to go inside of that team?
exactly. So I know we wanted to talk a little bit about that shift from
Yes,
control to letting go and trust. I think that's a big part of it. And we were
yes,
saying how um, having transparency instead of always wanting certainty. Just open it up for
yes,
conversation, which is really what we've
yes.
been talking about now.
Say what you know, say what you don't know. I also think it can be transparency about the process.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I just want to gather ideas. Or right now, I just want to make sure everybody understands the opportunity inside of us.
Exactly.
Sometimes people get confused about what kind of conversation are we having right now? Are we
Exactly. Yeah.
deciding? Are we exploring? Are we what? So that transparency is important.
So important. I'm thinking also of restructuring processes where transparency is limited. You can't share everything, but if you do share what you can, even if you don't have answers, just share this is what's going on. This is what we're in the process of. I don't have all the answers for you right now,
Yes.
but that transparency goes a long way and it can mitigate some of that need for certainty. It's like, okay, it's uncertain, but we're talking the uncertainty.
Yes.
Yeah,
The next shift word we wanted to share was collaboration. Or you can also think of as co-creation, right?
exactly.
Instead of perfection, instead of having to have all the answers yourself, how can you collaborate? How can you co-create? How can you bring people in?
Which is the examples that we just brought in, actually, of bringing the problem of the restructure. Okay, the third one we wanted to talk about is curiosity. Stay curious instead, and it's linked to the collaboration, but stay curious, ask questions,
Mhm,
learn more. Think,
mhm.
what about this do I want to know more about? And even if I think I have the answers, to encourage more creative thinking and more conversation, ask questions instead of always telling what to do, how to do it, giving the answers.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. What could emerge here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then boundaries was our fourth, right?
Yes,
Boundaries. Sometimes it's guardrails, right? If we are sharing that ownership, that autonomy, what are the guardrails? What are the boundaries that folks need to stay
absolutely.
in between? And what are
Absolutely.
the boundaries for all of us as leaders, right? What are our boundaries? Like, I'm not going to be asked to be copied on every email. What actually do I need to be updated on, right?
Yeah.
Can a bi-weekly touch base
Right.
handle that, right? Like, what are my boundaries to ensure that I'm not getting overly involved?
Right. And I think when you're working with your team, it's really important to actually have that conversation. Here's what I need to
Mhm.
know. Here's what's going to help me understand the process. I don't want to get involved in every single bit of information that happens. Again,
Yes.
thinking of the situation that came up today, that a client wanted to change a session and my assistant starts telling me, so he's suggesting this time and he's suggesting this time and I'm going, I don't want to know any of that. When it's changed, you can let me know that it's changed, so having that conversation, to what level do I need to be involved in this conversation, in this project, in this yeah, and
Yes.
for the other way as well, for you to let your boss know what would work for you in terms of getting things done in an empowered way.
Yes. Transparency about boundaries for
Yes,
ourselves
there we
and
go.
up and out. Yes. So those shift words were transparency, collaboration, curiosity, and boundaries.
Yes, yes. So is this time for our moment of stillness?
Yes.
Okay, we wanted to we're trying to frame our episodes now with something, a moment of stillness to take a breath and give you something to take away and think about for as a result of this conversation about control. So, what is our moment of stillness for today?
Our moment of stillness is, where in your leadership are you holding too tightly?
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. And I want to add to it that letting go doesn't necessarily mean letting it fall apart, because sometimes I think there is that connection. And possibly it's reframing that into letting others step in and starting to understand. So I think it ties in beautifully with, where are we gripping too tightly? Where can we bring others in?
Yeah, beautiful. So much wisdom, so much possibility in learning to loosen the grip.
Yeah, yeah. Because letting go is not weakness, it's actually wisdom.
It is. Listeners, if you know someone who needs to hear this conversation, please share it. Leave a comment. We'd love to know what resonates. We'd love to know what else you would like us to tackle in an unfiltered conversation. Let's keep the dialogue going.
So until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and stay unfiltered.